There's a verse in James chapter 1 that we've probably all heard. It's James 1 verse 5. It says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him." Probably heard that verse, that if you lack wisdom, ask for it, and God, who gives generously, will give it. But I don't know if we all know. This kind of hit me, I don't know, a couple months ago. I was taking a course, and my professor mentioned it, and I was like, whoa, I never noticed that before. The context of this verse. If you go up the page a little bit, a couple verses, the context is this. This is James 1 verse 2. "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." It continues on. "For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." And then verse 5 comes and says, "If you lack wisdom, ask for it." So this isn't just wisdom in general in any circumstance, whatever you're going through. It's James is instructing us, if we are going through trials, when we are going through trials, one, to count it as a joy. And I think we can all agree this last year and a bit have been very trialsome for all sorts of reasons. I mean, coronavirus and all political tensions, all the things that everybody's feeling, but also personal things that each one of us has gone through, maybe related to those bigger cultural things and maybe not. But life is full of trials. And James starts by saying, count it a joy. Count it a joy when you're facing trials. And why? Because in those trials, you are being shaped. You're being tested. Your faith is being tested. And that testing produces steadfastness. Now, I don't think this is the image James had in his head when he was writing, but it puts in my head the image of fire, actually. When you have a fire that is quick, so you have gunpowder laying on the ground and you light the gunpowder and you light it off and it just engulfs in flame real quick, super fast. It is super hot, but you can even have that on a piece of paper and the paper won't be burned because it's too fast. It doesn't go deep enough. It doesn't last long enough to do any real work. But then you contrast that with maybe like an open campfire, and there's a log in that middle of that fire that's just that glowing red, hot, orangey ember that it's almost like dancing around in there. And it's hot for a long, long time. You put a piece of paper on that, it's gone in a moment because the heat is so pervasive. It's doing work. And so it is with these trials that we face. Count it a joy because the testing of our faith produces steadfastness. If we go through a quick trial or we try to skirt our way around the trial, try to avoid it, it'll be like gunpowder. Sure, maybe you can tell a good story about it, or raise your hand when somebody says, "Have you gone through a trial?" and be like, "Yeah, I've gone through a trial." But when somebody examines our lives, and that's the only kind of trial we've gone through, we're like paper. Maybe there's a little mark, but it hasn't sunk into the depths of our being. Or we can be like that log on a fire, tested and refined over the course of time, and it's become part of who we are. It has built itself up into steadfastness. And then James writes that, chapter 1, verse 5, verse that we all probably know, to ask for wisdom. If we lack wisdom, to ask for it. In the midst of our trials, in the midst of the testing of our faith, in the midst of our refining, let's be faithful to ask for wisdom from the one who is faithful to give it. We're not meant to go through these trials alone. We're not meant to avoid them. We were meant to go through them, but to go through them with the person of Jesus Christ. I think that's another point of counting it a joy, because when I go through a trial, I have learned to count it a joy because when I am in trial, when I am dependent on Jesus, I am the closest to Jesus, I am with Jesus, and He is my joy and my hope. And so, in some sense, I invite trial, because I know when I am in trial, I am with Jesus, and that is enough for me. So, count it a joy that we're facing this trial together. and let's ask for wisdom. And God, who gives generously, will give it to us.